What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 179. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton, and joining me today is a teammate of mine, the co-owner of Everything College Basketball, Mr. Peyton Burton. As you can see, for those following along with us live on the YouTube, Twitter, and the Facebook group, we have a special guest at the bottom here that he was on a few weeks ago. Can't wait to get back to with our friend, Mr. Brandon Ramsey of KSR here in just a second. Peyton, this is our first show on the official House Enterprise and House of College Hoops StreamYard. We've all kind of collaborated and moved together under one StreamYard. So we've got some of the new, you've seen the new graphic that just popped up there. Exciting times. Oh, by the way, did I mention we're in March?
It's March, baby. Ain't gotta say nothing more. Ain't gotta say nothing less. It's showtime. It's net cutting season time. I'm excited. We've already seen some craziness happen over these last couple of days. Some wild buzzer beaters, game winners. Caitlin Clark just broke the all-time NCAA scoring record. Shout out to her. Too. What a baller she is. One of the best players I've ever seen, period. The fact that record just got broken is just ridiculous. It's March, baby. I'm so excited.
Brandon, you're with us at the start of the show this time, my friend. We were talking a little bit before we went live. Caitlin breaks the record. It was kind of inevitable. She only came in, I think it was like 19 points short of Pistol Pete's mark today. But she's the new record holder for across men and women's Division I college basketball. What a legacy that she has left in the sport, let alone women's basketball.
Yeah, what she does is incredible. I mean, the way she shoots the basketball and just the way she plays overall. I've said this to a couple of my friends. Like I'm admittedly, I don't follow women's college basketball. I don't at all. And I have found myself this season, like checking an Iowa women's basketball score, like just randomly, just to see like her stat line. And like that I am probably the poster child for somebody who she's kind of like brought into the game because admittedly, I still don't necessarily sit down and watch 2 hours of a game, but I do find myself interested in how she's doing, and then certainly it's exciting. I know you have some connections to Indiana. I still live in Indiana, where she's probably going to be playing for the Fever next
crazy,
year.
Man.
So yeah, that's going to be pretty cool for the state as well.
That's crazy, and ticket prices have already jumped. Like when she made the announcement earlier in the week that she's foregoing her final year, this will be it for her. And then pretty much she's going to the Fever unless the Fever make a boneheaded decision not to draft her. The ticket prices, like WNBA, especially for Fever, you can get them in like $10. Now they've raised to where like the lowest ticket is like $75, and like the upper echelons now I seen were like $400 or something. It's wild. Her and Aaliyah Boston, we talk women's college basketball. We actually love women's college basketball. We do our best here at ECB to give them the love and respect that they deserve. And she's been such a game changer. That women's tournament, just like the men's here, now we're in the month of March, is going to be insane. I think you've got legitimately 5-6 teams that could win that women's title. Obviously, South Carolina being the favorite, but it's the month of March. I'm so excited. Peyton and I next Saturday will be at the down in Evansville for the OVC title game for the second year in a row, getting to cover that. At the end of the show, we're going to preview some of that bracket, so cannot wait to be back in Evansville. But let's get into it. It is the month of March. The calendar is flipped. That means everybody's anxiety, especially in the D1 level, they know that the season's coming to a close, and if you're going to be a tournament team, now is the time to really start getting serious. We've got Brandon back on with us, obviously, from Kentucky Sports Radio. So let's start off and go down to Lexington, where Kentucky, coming off of a big buzzer-beaten win where they almost blew it earlier in the week against Mississippi State, and Reed Shepherd played the hero, where he almost played the villain, too, in a way with that bad pass, but ends up playing the hero with the game winner. Incredible game. How do they respond? They've already beat Arkansas on the road once this year. As we know, Arkansas is going to go down as one of our most disappointing teams this year, but they still had a lot of talent. And Arkansas made more shots yesterday than they've made the entire course of the year. They put up 102 points and lost the game. Kentucky wins 111 to 102. Arkansas shoots incredible from the floor, got to the foul line, put up 102 points. And if my stat is right, I think Tom Leach said it on the postgame radio yesterday. It's the most points Kentucky has given up in a win since they did it to the Pistol Pete era back when he was playing for LSU back in the day, which again kind of ironically ties in what we've been talking about with Caitlin Clark. Brandon, I'll let you start, man. There was a point there, I'm not going to lie, with about 6.5 to go. We're down 9. And I thought, man, we can't drop this because Arkansas is not missing and we're not guarding. And then Cal goes to the lineup with all freshmen. You have Big Z, you have Rob, you have Reed, you have who else was in there? Rob
Justin Edwards.
Edwards, thank you. And 5 freshmen closed the game out and went on a run to close the show. Talk me through that, because I know the roller coaster emotions I was feeling. How were you feeling when we're down 9 with about 6.5 to go?
Yeah, it's just crazy how so many of these games turn into just a microcosm of Kentucky's season as a whole. It feels like, with that roller coaster, where kind of as soon as you feel like you haven't figured out, they do something to sort of flip you back around, whether it be, you know, a kind of a head scratching loss after a couple big wins, or whether it be a big win after a head scratching loss, and then, you know, sort of to shrink that down to a single game. You see it on Saturday, where I think with about 18 minutes to go in the second half, so, you know, pretty early second half, Kentucky gets up 10, and then within 9 or so minutes they're down 9, and then they flip it right back around where then they win the game by 9 points in the final, you know, 7.5 minutes or so. And yeah, I'm with you, Josh. When I think it was Tremont Mark maybe who hit a 3 to put them up 9 with about 7.5 minutes to go, and I was watching the game with my dad, and I looked at him, I was like, man, this might be a problem. Like, I just don't know if there's going to be enough stops to be had in this game at this point in order to come back. Now, luckily, the defense did crank it up a little bit when they needed to. I had tweeted something out earlier today where at the end of the first half and then there at the end of the game, Kentucky actually was decent defensively for stretches of 4 to 6 minutes or so to allow their offense to do the work and win the game. But yeah, when you can close a game like that, I mean, Antonio Reeves didn't play for the last 7.5 minutes of the game.
Crazy. It's another
still
thing.
Leads the way with 22 points. And that's the thing with this Kentucky team, is just on a game-to-game basis, they have so many different guys that can step up. I mean, who would have expected DJ Wagner to hit 4 threes on Saturday? Who would have expected Aaron Bradshaw to have 15 points? I mean, and then just a week or so ago, it was Justin Edwards having 28. You have Reed Shepherd scoring 32 on Tuesday night. So it's at times there's just so many different guys that can beat you, and that's really hard for other teams to deal with when you never know on a game-to-game basis who's going to be the dude you really have to key on.
Peyton and I talk about this a lot. The reason why Kentucky's so hard to handle is because of the elite offense, but it's not just like one guy who goes nuts all the time. It's got to the point where you talk about Antonio Reeves, you can almost pencil him in before the start of any game. He's getting 20, and it'll be the most quiet 20 points you've ever heard. Like in a game yesterday, you were talking about he didn't play the final 7-minute stretch there, and he still had 22. You almost forgot he had 22. Peyton, first time, I think, since 2004, Kentucky's had 7 guys in double-figure scoring. Again, talking about the balance and how so many people on that roster can beat you from the offensive end yesterday. And then the defensive end, Peyton, they were atrocious defensively. Like, there's no way around it. But when the 5 freshmen closed that game out, they were able to manage 3, 4, 5 stops there that mattered. And we talk about it all the time here lately. Kentucky doesn't need to be elite. They need stretches where they can shut the show down, because you cannot keep pace with them offensively. Peyton, a win's a win, and I said it on our Twitter, and I said it to you in person. The old adage goes, you would rather win ugly games than lose pretty. I'll take ugly wins all day of the week.
Yeah, that's like Virginia's motto. They rather win games ugly than to win pretty any day of the week. So that's their motto. But there's a couple of questions I have about this Kentucky team, and I want to ask you both. But first, Aaron Bradshaw was great in this game. Him and DJ played great, amazing in this game. Bradshaw was 15 points, 5 rebounds, did not miss a single shot, 4-4 from the field, hit 2 free throws, hit a big 3 6 minutes to go in the second half that really gave Kentucky some good momentum. A couple things I want to talk about. This offense is probably the best offense I have ever seen Kentucky have, period. Now, I'm a lot younger than Josh. There's like a 10-year difference between me and him, 10-year gap. So I didn't get to experience all the 90 Kentucky teams that he did and stuff like that. But this is 100% the best offense I've ever seen Kentucky have, period. You have 3 guards that can go get you buckets anytime they want to. DJ Wagner is starting to get his mojo back, and he's starting to be a little bit more consistent now. Justin Edwards is starting to be better. You got Bradshaw and Big Z doing their work down low and be able to hit shots outside, helps Kentucky out tremendously. At one point in this game, I think Kentucky was down 42-38. They were down like 4 points, and they won like a 15-3 run just like that, and to flip the game completely around. That's just how lethal this Kentucky's offense is. 100% the best offense in the country, without a doubt. The couple questions I have for you guys. I mentioned Bradshaw. With his level of play starting to rise up in this game specifically late in March, I'm sure that gives you guys a lot of confidence heading into SEC tournament and obviously the big dance. So I want to hear your guys' opinions on his level of play ramping up here soon. And also the bigger question, Anesu and Trey Mitchell. This is Trey Mitchell's first game back, correct?
After
injury?
Yeah, it was.
That's what I thought.
And he looked the part too. He looked rusty.
Yeah, he played 16 minutes, 2 points, and those 2 points came from free throws. Does it raise any – what can they do, both of those guys, Anesu and Trey Mitchell, what can they do to help you guys out in March, especially late this season?
Brandon, I'll let you take this first. I have my answer, but I'm curious about yours.
Yeah, I think that when you're talking about Aaron Bradshaw, I mean, it's obviously great to see him step up in that way, just as it was great to see Justin Edwards step up last week, because these guys come in as freshmen, McDonald's All-Americans, projected lottery picks. Like it's hard probably for any of us, certainly to speak for myself, like it's hard to even comprehend the level of pressure some of these kids probably feel at 18, 19 years old, especially then when things aren't necessarily going as planned. You're maybe only playing 10 to 12 minutes a game. You're obviously not putting up the stats you expect. And you kind of, everybody sees these mock drafts. Like it's unavoidable to see yourself, in November be projected to be the 4th pick. And now you're projected to be the 44th pick. It's like, well, that's a heck of a lot of money that you're watching just kind of, be taken from your pockets. And at 18, 19, that has to be hard. So to see him experience some success like this is really good. As it pertains to Onyenso, I still think that you're going to see games where what he can do defensively is going to be the answer for Kentucky. I think he still probably is the best rim protector of the group, though Big Z is showing that he can block some shots at a pretty high level as well. Trey Mitchell, I think we just kind of need to reserve really any judgment, at least until, we see him play the next couple of games. I think when it's your first game back, he had missed, essentially 4.5 games going into Saturday. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt as an older guy that he'll just kind of get his feet underneath him. But I think what's interesting with Bradshaw, Onyenso, and Big Z, those guys played exactly 40 minutes together at the 5 on Saturday, and they combined for 28 points and 17 rebounds. So on a given night, like it really doesn't matter who's doing it. And we've seen each of those 3 guys have sort of their game where they pull ahead of the pack. But when you can get 28 points and 17 rebounds, like somebody said to me on Twitter, like that's an Oscar Tshiebwe
solo night,
that you're getting from your 3-5 from your 3 7-footers. So I think if you can just get that combined production, it's not going to matter on a night-to-night basis who it is. And I think that we're still between now and the NCAA tournament, the SEC tournament, the 2 games left in the regular season, we're going to see each of those 3 guys sort of have their moment still. But just collectively, if they can have 28 points and 17 rebounds, Kentucky's not going to lose very many basketball games.
I completely agree. And so I want to go ahead and discuss it real quick. So from our official Twitter account, it was me that quote tweeted something that you'd put out with the balance of Kentucky's scoring, where we had the 7 guys double figures. You listed them all out. And I put on there, no offense to Uganda, but after seeing the last couple games where Bradshaw and Big Z in particular have learned to at least fight through some physicality, that those 2 should get the bulk of the 5 minutes because they give Kentucky something extra that, no offense to Ugo, that Ugo does not give. And I think this sounds crazy. And I put this out there and got a couple agreements and disagreements. No big deal. The worst thing that happened to Ugo was that 10 block game, because from a positional wise, he wants to jump at everything now. He wants to go for every block, and it's getting him in out of position. Go back to the LSU loss. He was kind of out of position. I think the 10 block game was kind of sometimes the worst thing that happened to him. I like Ugo. I think he's going to have his role. He's going to come in. If he's steady, he's going to rebound. He's going to be the physical presence. He's going to block shots. But I think moving forward, now that we're seeing Bradshaw and Big Z starting to at least learn how to fight through some physicality, both of them block shots, both of them space the floor a whole lot better. I think those 2 deserve the bulk of the minutes. Ugo places in for spot minutes, for rebounding toughness and all that. But I think Kentucky, if they were to make a run to the Final Four, it's going to have to be on the backs of Big Z, Bradshaw rotation at the 5 with Ugo playing spot minutes. Just my opinion, I think those two give Kentucky an extra gear that maybe Ugo doesn't. Again, no offense to the kid. I like Ugo, and he will have his role. I'm not saying completely cut him out entirely, but I think Kentucky will be much better when Z and Bradshaw take the bulk of the 5. Just my opinion on that. But again, it's hard to say that, and then no offense to Ugo. I really do like the kid. I really do. He's had some tremendous games. I just think he gets himself in bad spots going for every block instead of staying positionally sound, staying in between himself and the basket, playing big. And then the best shot blockers, you know this, Brandon. You've been around a while like I have. The best shot blockers, the greatest of all time, leap second. You don't jump first. You jump second. And what's Ugo and a lot of these guys on college basketball like to do today? They want to jump at the slightest head fake, slightest ball fake, slightest head fake, slightest shot fake. They're up in the air. You got to leap second, stay grounded, and you'll get more blocks. But I think Big Z and Bradshaw, as long as they continue to play through physicality, are the way to go for Kentucky. But let's talk a little bit more about this game. Arkansas kind of lived at the free throw line. I mean, Khalif Battle, 17 of 18 from the foul line for 34 points. He's been on a heater the last 4 or 5 games where he's averaging, I think, like 33, 34 points a game. He's been on a heater, lived obviously at the free throw line last night. What, from Arkansas's perspective, did you guys see that gave Kentucky problems when, again, they've struggled? We came in, we had them all ranked in the preseason. We knew the talent coming in, the must bus and all that fun stuff, but they've really struggled. But yesterday, they looked like a team that should have been in the tournament. What was it about them yesterday that clicked and gave Kentucky all sorts of problems? Was it Kentucky's defense that made them look good? Because I think Arkansas just hit a shit ton of shots. I mean, they hit shots that they've not hit all year. Tremont Mark, especially in the first half, good defense. You'd have Reeves or somebody on him contest it, and he hit shots. So what about Arkansas yesterday gave Kentucky problems and made them look better in what they've looked all year?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to Arkansas is really physical and really athletic. And those are areas where I think you do see that, not that Kentucky is unathletic by any means, but I think this the physicality of Arkansas's athletes compared to maybe some more of like the finesse of Kentucky's athletes is the difference in what makes Arkansas a little bit of a tough matchup actually for Kentucky. And when you look at some of the shots they made, and I do agree with you, Josh, that they made some shots that were more about them just having a great afternoon than Kentucky's defense. But still, when you see them shoot 53% from the field, it's like 59% or something from 2-point range, I think, around the basket. Like some of that obviously, some of that obviously is Kentucky letting them get downhill to the basket. And it is frustrating when a team, they come in, Arkansas is a 32% 3-point shooting team coming in. Like, you would like to think that the game plan would be to pack it in a little bit more and not let those guys drive it, because when Arkansas drives it, they're more so driving it to get fouled than they are driving it even to score. And that's how they end up, shooting 28 free throws, because Kentucky is probably up on them a little too much. They're having to put their hands on them as they drive it. And then still it's, this is kind of to your point too, where not only were they making some shots, they were making free throws as well, because this is a 73.3% free throw shooting team that shot 27 of 28. And there's nothing Kentucky can do about that. They can't guard a free throw. So it's a little bit twofold. Kentucky's defense lets them get going a little bit, but absolutely, I think Arkansas played one of their, they scored 102 points. I would say it's their best offensive game of the season.
Peyton, I do want to give some love to Devo Davis. Obviously, we've watched him for a couple of years. Incredible talent, but kind of loses his head. We've talked about it. Go back to Arkansas at the end of the regular season last year. Gets thrown out of the game. Didn't play in the first meeting for some off-the-court drama or whatever. But when he's locked in, he's one of the best on-ball defenders in college basketball. And we've seen it yesterday where he just single-handedly blew off some dribble handoffs, where he shot the gap, got his hand in there, or like would pickpocket somebody. He didn't play all well offensively. You don't expect that from Devo. But defensively, when he's locked in, he's one of the top, what would you guys say, top 5 or 6 best on-ball defenders in college basketball when his head's on straight. And he showed it some yesterday too. So I want to give him some credit for that.
100%. He picked Reeves a couple of times when he was trying to do he picked Dillingham when he tried to do that crossover in the first half. Completely picked him clean and allowed Arkansas to get going offensively. Yeah, stat wise, it wouldn't say like he showed out or played a good game, but he did stuff that put them in a potential chance of actually winning this ball game and up. So hats off to him. He did well. Going back to this game and what allowed Arkansas to get going, especially early, is just Kentucky's inability to just straight up guard someone on ball. Like, they allowed Arkansas to get to the rim, like, easily. It almost felt like I was watching Alabama play defense because they don't want to play defense at all. And it felt like Kentucky did not want any part of playing defense at all, even though I know they was trying. Coach Cal went to zone a couple times for, like, 2 possessions. One possession, I think it actually worked. I think they actually stopped them. And the other possession, Reed Shepherd allowed himself to get screened, not fighting over the top, and gave up a 3-pointer.
That drives me insane.
And then Cal immediately said, to hell with that, going back to man-to-man. And then they ended up making some adjustments and ended up getting it going, gave up 102 points. But just Arkansas's ability to get to the rim, draw fouls, allow them to stick into this game and even make a run to actually take the lead after Kentucky went on to that 15-3 run in the second half. So Kentucky, I mean, they showed sparks, or they showed some sense where they can play good defense. They just got to put that together for a couple of stretches because there's no reason in hell you should be giving up 100 points in your own building to this dog shit Arkansas squad. I don't care what anybody says. This is ridiculous. And I do have one final question about this Kentucky team heading into the tournament, something that actually concerns me pretty well. And I've said last week, I cannot trust this Kentucky team to win 6 straight in the tournament to win a national championship. And here's why. One reason, is 100% the defense. That's 100%. Like everybody else's concerns about Kentucky, that's definitely a concern to me. Another concern that I don't think people are talking about, and Josh, me and you've talked about it over these last couple months, wherever the wheels starting to figure out that we thought the wheels was falling off in Kentucky. When are they going to start Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham? Because you're getting onto these slow starts. You got a slow start against Mississippi State. Had to win it, had to Reed Shepherd, but bail you out in that game. You got into a slow start in this one, and it ended up almost costing you. Luckily, you pulled out and got the dub. You got into a slow start against Gonzaga, ended up losing that game. These slow starts are going to eventually kill you into the tournament. Start Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham, and that shit would not happen.
Brandon, we've seen this a lot here lately. I'm of the belief, especially at coaching wise, if you're winning, don't change it. If the guys are comfortable, if Rob and Reed are comfortable coming off the bench because they're coming in immediately, like sometimes within the first 2 minutes of the start of the game, don't change it. There's no point. It doesn't matter who starts a lot of times. It matters who ends. As long as I think you need to focus more instead of worrying about Rob and Reed starting all the time. Try to encourage like the starters like DJ and Justin and them to get off to a better start. Because there's no guarantee that Rob and Reed automatically start and we start the game off 15-2. There's no guarantee. Now, you might think that by offensive stats and all that, but there's no guarantee. Just have the guys who start play better. Like, that's simple to me. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I think it's certainly an interesting debate because I do agree with Peyton's point that it's March 3rd now as we're recording this. I mean, we've seen 29 Kentucky basketball games this season, and more times than not, like at that first media timeout or when Rob and Reed come in, like Kentucky's losing the game a lot of times when those guys come in. And yes, to your point, Josh, I definitely am of the belief that it doesn't necessarily matter who starts, it matters who plays the minutes. And a lot of times, especially Reed, but Rob too, like those guys play as many, if not more minutes than the starters. I mean, yesterday Kentucky's bench played more than their starters. But I do think sometimes it matters how you start. And if you're just consistently down, 10-6, 13-4, whatever it may be, like you're just sort of always playing from behind at that point. So I think I would actually split the difference a little bit. I would like to see one of them start and one of them come off the bench, just so you still have that punch coming off of the bench. But then you also get, one of your best players in the starting lineup. To me, it's more about, like, I don't necessarily even care about putting them in for DJ Wagner. I think it's about probably moving either a Duthiero or Justin Edwards out of the starting lineup, so you have 3 guards in there at all times. Because there's times where, like, when you're starting, and I know just a couple of games ago, Justin had a great shooting night. Obviously, DJ Wagner had a great shooting day on Saturday, but still, those guys aren't, traditional 3-point shooters. Like, when you have DJ, Ugo, Adu, and Justin all in there, like, it's just a little bit harder to run offense. So I would like to get the guards in there for that reason. But yeah, I think at this point, especially with as stubborn as Coach Cal can be, I would not hold my breath that it actually is going to change. Yeah. But I do agree to Peyton's point that maybe even when you've won 5 of your last 6 and you're playing some of your best basketball, it's hard to argue, in my opinion, that Kentucky wouldn't be better served with at least one of those guys in the starting lineup.
How about this? How about this? Sorry, real quick, because we got to start moving on from this, and we got other games to talk about. But how about this too? Not only split this between Rob and Reed, but Ugo gives them, again, it sounds like I'm picking on Ugo, but he gives them nothing offensively from away from the rim. Start Aaron or start Big Z. Put them in that lineup to help space the floor. Maybe that starting lineup of DJ, Justin, Antonio, and Adu has more floor spacing to do what they do well. Maybe just that one tweak instead of Rob and Reed. Maybe that one tweak helps as well. Peyton, finish this off because we got to move on.
I just think at some point in the tournament, like if you're playing a team like, I don't know, Iowa State, Houston, like you can't afford to start the game down like 8-2, 10-2, 10-4. You cannot start the game out like that. You're going to need a spark coming out right at the gates, because if you're trailing behind and you're playing from behind against teams like that who are just going to muck it up and play hard defense and be physical, and just the toughness is going to show out for those teams, like it's going to be really difficult for you guys to come back and end up winning the game. So I think at some point in March, yes, it's working now, but at some point in March in the tournament, something's going to have to happen where you start both of them, whether you start Big Z or Bradshaw, you start one guard, let the other guard come off the bench. Something's going to have to happen and change in March before something bad happens, and maybe you guys take an early upset.
I can see all sides of that point. Brandon, do you got to go, or can you stay and talk some Alabama, Tennessee with us real quick?
I'm gonna have to hop off okay, here. I gotta finish up writing my article from yesterday's game.
You're good. So, yeah, we appreciate you, Brandon. Plug it again where everybody can find your work. You do tremendous work. We're happy to call you a friend and have you come on with us. Plug it. Let everybody know where to find you at.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Josh. You can find me most importantly on Twitter. That's where all my stuff lives there. At Ramsey KSR. I'm also host the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show podcast every Monday and Friday. Have a YouTube show by the same name as well that you can find there as well, the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show. So you can look that up on Spotify, YouTube, all that good stuff. And then again, all that you can find and more at Ramsey KSR.
Go give this man a follow, watch and listen to his stuff. And he also does, what is it, on the official KSR YouTube, the film room breakdown stuff?
Yeah.
Dude, I love that. I've talked to you in private about that. The kind of the coach in me loves that stuff. He does tremendous film room breakdowns. Go find that and watch it. He breaks down the plays of Kentucky we've talked about on here before, breaks them down in detail from a coaching perspective, what went wrong, what went right, how to fix it, how to adjust it in live time with video. It is tremendous work. Brandon, we are so thankful that you came on again with us, man. A little shorter notice, but we appreciate it. And we can't wait to have you back on, my friend.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys. Thanks a lot.
Brandon Ramsey of Kentucky Sports Radio, we thank you so much for joining us at the top of the show here. Peyton, he's a good dude. He's really smart about Kentucky sports and college basketball in general. I'm happy to call him a friend. I'm happy to be able to have him on anytime.
Absolutely. It was a blast. I was able to talk to him when he was on the first time, but be able to pick his brain a little bit about Kentucky basketball. It's always fun to talk to somebody who knows the team like really well, like he does. So and follows them as closely as he does. So he does great work, and it was glad to have him on.
Let's stay in the SEC. We've changed the format up a little bit, but let's stay in the SEC, Peyton. You look at the SEC standings right now following this last week of games here, heading into the final week of the regular season. Tennessee's win at Alabama last night, which we're going to talk about here in just a second, have given them the foothold in the SEC title race. They're 13-3 leading the conference. Alabama and South Carolina is tied for second, both 12-4. Auburn, Kentucky 11-5, Florida 10-6. That is your top 6 in the SEC. The final week of the regular season is going to determine not only who wins the conference, but the seed lines, who gets the most important double byes that do not have to play till Friday night in the SEC tournament. Right now, Auburn and Kentucky are both 11-5, although in KenPom and in the standings, Auburn is ahead of Kentucky for that final double bye spot in fourth. The only thing I can think of is because they have their overall records better at the moment. They're 22-7, Kentucky's 21-8, but Kentucky is the head-to-head over them. So let's assume that it all plays out. Kentucky would end up being, presumably, I would assume, the 4 seed to double bye with the head-to-head record between Auburn here in conference play. But Tennessee's last night, let's talk about Tennessee, Alabama from last night down there in Tuscaloosa. Tennessee jumped Alabama to start the game. I mean, they jumped them, got up 23-12, and then Bama rolls back behind their incredible offense. They were able to get stops. They turned Tennessee into a 3-point shooting team. They said at one point after a timeout, they said, screw this. We're not letting them. We're going to shut off the middle drives here, and we're going to turn them into outside jump shooting teams. Tennessee started missing. Alabama's offense got fired. Alabama rallies to get the lead. They actually lead in the second half with 12:25 left to go, 58-51. And then Tennessee showed their resolve, their experience, and their toughness, rallied back to end up winning this game 81-74 in a massive tilt. What this told me last night, Peyton, Dalton Knecht had a quiet 13 points. Alabama was able to limit him to 4 of 7 from the floor and only 1 of 7 from 3. He had 13 points. Tennessee still wins. What this tells me is the Vols are the real deal Holyfield to win a national championship. They have offense this year. That defense is still elite as hell, and they can win games on the road without Dalton Knecht going off. Yeah. I've been hesitant. You know how I feel because Tennessee's let us down so many times in the past. This ain't your granddaddy's Tennessee anymore, Peyton. The Vols are the real deal.
This is the best team that Rick Barnes has had at Tennessee since he's been there. I mean, Dalton Knecht is the SEC Player of the Year contender.
He'll win it.
He probably should win it, even though I think guys like Mark Sears and Antonio Reeves have legit chances of saying they could win that award as well, but I think Dalton Knecht's going to win it. He's just so amazing. I mean, only 13 points in this game, but his ability to just go off at any point and just make big plays late in the stretch is what gives Tennessee the edge over anyone in this conference. I mean, this team, it felt like they won the first 4 minutes and they won the last 4 minutes, but everything in between of those, the rest of the 32 minutes, I felt like Tennessee, it felt like they were lost a little bit in the second half. Like when Bama went up like 7 points there, like 58-51 or whatever the score was when Bama went up in the second half, it felt like Tennessee was getting off of the rhythm. They wouldn't get anything going offensively. They couldn't really stop one ball against Alabama. Alabama was basically getting anything they want down low and just basically bullying them and hitting some shots. So it felt like Tennessee was a little bit lost in that second half, but once they finally put it together and they started making a run, they got the lead. They never held back, and they won the last 4 minutes of the game. Ended up winning by 7 points, 81-74. But the fact that they did that, and I don't think they necessarily played their best game this one, they won on the road in a tough environment. Hats off to Tennessee. You're going to win the conference. You're going to be the 1 seed, and you have a legitimate chance of going to the Final Four. And finally, Rick Barnes can finally shut up all of his critics that says that he can't get it done in March.
I completely agree. Josiah Jordan-James was the KenPom MVP in this one, Peyton. He played 33 minutes, 11 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists. His continued development, if you remember when we covered him as a freshman, sophomore a couple years ago, he was a good player. Well, I think he was, a 4-star consensus, maybe even as a 5-star. I can't remember that. But we watched his development year over year, and his ability to turn himself into a solid 3-point shooter. He went 3 of 6 in this game. What's he shooting on the year? He is shooting 33.6, he's shooting 33.6%. So it's a little under average, but you look at the years prior, Peyton. His freshman year, he shot 36. That was his best year. Then it went to 30, then it went to 32.4, then last year was 31, now he's back up to 33. So his development of getting back to being a decent enough 3-point shooter, you have to guard him out there. Then at 6'7", he can switch out and play your guards off of a switch on a pick and roll, and he can play your interior guys because how physical he is. He might be Tennessee's X factor. Like, obviously Dalton Knecht's their best player, but Josiah Jordan-James playing well makes Tennessee a dangerous spot or a dangerous contender to go to the Final Four. His ability at 6'7" to do all this, 3 of 6 from three-point line. Zakai Ziegler hits 4 of them. He took 14 of them. He was one of those guys we were talking about at the beginning of this, that when Alabama shut the middle drives off, that they started forcing Tennessee into shooting threes. Well, he was one that kind of fell in love with it. By the way, Tennessee went 12 of 40 from 3. They shot 40 3-point attempts in this game. Alabama shot 37. These teams combined for 77 3-point attempts in this game, Peyton. 77. That's like NBA numbers. Yeah. 77 3-point attempts. Wow.
I guess we just need to rename the SEC to like the NBA SEC, because now you got Kentucky and Arkansas putting up 100 points. Alabama ain't playing no defense, and now both of these teams are shooting over 73s in a game. Like, this is the SEC sponsored by the National Basketball Association.
It really is.
But like your point on Josiah Jordan James, like he is the Swiss Army knife of this team. He can do absolutely everything. He can go up to and rebound. He had 13 rebounds in this game. He plays hard defensively. He's going to give you effort every single game. He's obviously very, very talented, and he has the composure and the confidence to go in there and do whatever's asked for him. So I think he's 100% the difference maker of this team. Dalton Knecht is the best team. Like, he's going to be the reason if they go to the Final Four and potentially win a national championship. Dalton Knecht is going to be the main reason. But guys like Josiah Jordan James and Jordan Gainey and all these other guys on this team that provides what they need to do, those are the guys that you need to look out for, because they're the ones who holds this whole situation together.
Peyton, how much, because obviously a lot of people only watch college basketball when the calendar turns to March, right? There's a lot of casuals that start watching now ahead of the tournament so they can kind of know what they're talking about around the water cooler on Monday at work, right? How many people, when they see Dalton Knecht in the NCAA tournament, if Tennessee makes a run, how many people are going to fall in love with this kid, with his ability to score at 6'6"? There's going to be a lot of casuals this month that's going to watch Dalton Knecht and think, my God, he's so good. The stuff that we've known for 3 months now. But there's going to be a lot of casuals, I think, this March that's going to fall in love with Dalton Knecht. Jonas Adu, too. We got to give some love to him. He's been tremendous in his junior year. 12.7 rebounds. He had 2 blocks in this game. He is a legitimate rim protector, rim like dunker spot area that changes Tennessee and plays to the style Rick Barnes likes, because he's so physical at 6'11", 240. Let me ask you real quick, and then we'll talk some about Alabama. Tennessee. One of my fears about Tennessee in the tournament is if somebody, another team, gets Zakai Ziegler in foul trouble and he's off the floor, because they're going to move Santiago Vescovi to the point guard a lot of times, or maybe Meshack runs it, or Jordan Gainey. And it's not the same team when Zakai Ziegler is not running the show. They'll still be really good. They'll still play good defense. They'll still have offensive power. But if Zakai Ziegler ever fouls out of a game, or has to miss a game, or is in foul trouble for long stretches of a game, I think it does change Tennessee a little bit. And the only thing I really worry about is when Tennessee starts getting further in March and they have to match up against like a Houston or one of those teams we've talked about that has big physical guards that can maybe give Tennessee problems, especially Zakai Ziegler.
I think that's fair to ask or have a concern about, because if you take him away like you did last season, you took him out of the equation, Tennessee was not the same team as they were when they had him on the floor when he tore his ACL last year. So I definitely think that's to raise concerns about. But I mean, we had 1 foul in this game. The thing is about Tennessee, that they're going to go out there every single game, and they're going to be the ones that's going to bring the physicality to the game. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be the other team, unless they play like a Houston or someone like that, who will happily be glad to be able to play a physical game and be physical all night. They're going to be the ones that bring the physicality, and normally the teams that are more physical and they bring the physicality, they normally don't get fouls called on them too much in these games, especially in tournament. But who knows? Like, these refs are so inconsistent when it hits March and the tournament starts that you don't know what's going to happen. So I do think a guy like Zakai Ziegler, Rick Barnes, got to get into his ear and say, hey, we need you on this floor as much as possible. We cannot afford to take you out at any point in this game for long terms, for long stints of this games. You got to stay composed, and you got to try your best to stay out of foul trouble. Don't be reaching every single play. Don't be gambling like Reed Shepard. Don't be doing any of this stuff like everybody else does. Just play straight up man-to-man defense. Do not try to foul. Do not try to do anything stupid. You can still be physical. There's ways of being physical without using your hands. You can be physical with your chest. You can bump someone with your chest. If they call that a foul, then that's ridiculous. So keep your hands off of them. Just play straight up defense, and I think Tennessee will be fine.
Alabama, real quick. Mark Sears, 22 points, obviously leading the way for the Tide. He's been incredible all year. Aaron Estrada, 16. Nick Pringle with 13. The only 3 Tide members in double figures. Grant Nelson, 3 points in such a big game. He played 16 minutes, 3 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, fouled out. They brought him in to be their difference maker. They brought him in to be the 6'11 unicorn that we've seen with Kentucky and all these other places that can shoot the 3 ball, that can be athletic and run the floor, that can block shots and help on drop coverage in the pick and roll and all that fun stuff. In these big games like this, he can't be fouling out and only having 3 points. Like, he's got to be better if Alabama wants to make a run in the tournament. But anytime you've got an offense the way Alabama does, you got guards like Mark Sears and Estrada, Rylan Griffin, and the talent they've got, they're always going to be dangerous. But we talk a lot about Kentucky's defense. If Alabama don't learn to guard nobody, they're in the same boat. They're in the same boat, and they're going to have to learn to guard somebody, and Nate Oates has said as much. So it's going to be really interesting how, when the brackets come out 2 weeks from today, by the way, when they come out and we look at Kentucky and Alabama, how people are going to fill out their brackets based upon matchups for these two teams.
I want to hear your opinion on this and hear everybody else's opinions on this. After watching Alabama pretty much all season long, especially like really getting into Alabama in these last month and a half here, I want to hear your opinions. I think they can get beat in the first weekend. I don't know if they can even make it out of the first weekend. Because as of now, we'll talk about bracketology later. As of now, Jonathan Warner, making the bracketness.com, by the way, he has them as a 4 seed playing Appalachian State, and Appalachian State is a defensive team. They're going to go out there and grind it out. They got Jordan Marsh. They got a guy who can go score as well. That's an upset potentially waiting to happen 100%. First round. And the difference between Alabama and Kentucky, both teams are electrifying offensively. I think Kentucky's a little bit better because they got more options. They got better guards than Bama does. And Alabama, they just don't want to play defense at all.
They don't.
It's not that they can't. Kentucky, they want to play defense. Just sometimes they get, like, it's all basketball IQ with them. They get out of position, and Nelson tries to block everything. Like, it's more like intangibles more than, like, wanting to actually do it. Bama just refuses to play defense at all, it seems like, every single game. So I think in March, if you're playing a team like Appalachian State who's gladly able to play defense and capable of doing it for 40 minutes period, as long as they can hit some shots. But we've seen crazier things happen in a tournament with teams who come in shooting about 32% from 3, come in like act like they're the best 3-point shooting team in the country. In March, we've seen it happen I've seen it happen way too many times in March.
I wish I had Trevor's Apple computer where he can put the 100 up and it pops up, because you're 100% correct. And we will talk at the end of the show a little bit of bracketology, but here's the crazy thing about teams like Alabama and Kentucky, though. They could get beat theoretically by an Appalachian State in the 4-13. But then you look at the next matchup, they could beat Washington State and Indiana State. They've already beat Indiana State by 20-something. So they could easily go to the Sweet 16 to play Purdue and run Purdue out the building because of their offense. This is the thing that's going to make grading Alabama and Kentucky so difficult come March, because when you have that lead of an offense, you're always going to be in games. It's just, can you get enough defensive kills or the right defensive stops at the right time to allow your offense to pull away from a team? In Illinois is the same case. They're a 4 seed as well. Incredible offense. Defense is optional. So it's going to be, I'm telling you, we're going to talk more about this now that we've turned the calendar to March. This tournament's going to be so insane to grade a lot of these teams. But let's go to the number 1 team in the country, Peyton. In both the ECB and the AP poll, they went number 1 this last week after UConn's loss the week prior. Houston almost tuck an L at a struggling Oklahoma down there in Norman, Oklahoma yesterday. It took a Jamal Sheed game winner as the buzzer expired, essentially, for Houston to walk away from Norman with their 7th win in a row, 87-85, Peyton. We talk about Houston. We talk about offense a lot. Their offense, efficient-wise, is ranked 13th. Number 1 defense in college basketball, according to the metrics. We've talked about this, so we don't have to spend a whole lot of time, but what makes Houston so difficult, they've got really experienced, really tough guards. They've got a big-time shot maker in LJ Cryer. Jamal Sheed's a big-time shot maker. They're tough as hell, and they play elite defense. But this is a game that shows exactly why they can be so dangerous in the NCAA tournament in a couple weeks, because in a game where they probably should have lost, their toughness found them a way to win like they did against Baylor last Saturday. Peyton, big-time shot by Jamal Sheed yesterday to win the game.
Now, we talked about Zakai Ziegler, and if he goes out with foul trouble, if he's in foul trouble, what would that do for Tennessee's chances of making a run? I have the same questions about Houston. What happens if a guy like Jamal Sheed goes out with foul trouble? He had 4 fouls in this game, played 31 minutes. LJ Cryer played the entire game. He played 40 minutes in this game, although he stayed out of foul trouble. He only had 2. Like, what happens if one of those guys goes out with foul trouble, and now that really changes Houston's ability to win this game? Because if you take either one of those out, like especially Jamal Sheed, it's like you're cutting the head off the snake, because he's the guy that does pretty much almost everything for them. Yes, people talk about his ability to score, but what people don't also remember is also he leads his team in assists per game. He's one of the best passers in the country. His playmaking ability, his ability to get to the rim and dish out to guys like LJ Cryer, he's the guy. He's the type of player that's going to get LJ Cryer going. And if you take him out of this game, obviously, they don't win this game because the Jamal Sheed shot does not happen at all, and they end up taking an upset in this one. But if that happens in March, where like he's out of the game and they got to make some plays, I worry that Houston would not be able to overcome that deficit of not having him, or especially LJ Cryer on the floor. They had foul trouble. Francis fouled out of this game. He had 5. He played 12 minutes, had 1 point in this game. Roberts played good. He had 20 points, 10 or 12 from the field, 5 rebounds. The biggest thing that surprises me in this game is Oklahoma won the rebounding battle, which is shocking to me. They won it 27-22. A Houston team led by Kelvin Sampson only had 22 rebounds.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Here's the thing that I think yesterday really made me think Houston could actually win the title. Not that I wasn't necessarily a believer, but they go on the road in a conference game against a team that should be in the tournament, Oklahoma, that's desperate for a big-time win. They've been struggling the last month or so. Desperate for a win. They should have lost. Oklahoma hit 12 threes. Just under 50%. They shot 48% from 3. Oklahoma hit 12 threes on them. They put up 85 points. Houston matched them point for point in a game they should have lost and scored 87. Those were my fears about Houston's offense. They hit 10 threes of their own. Can they do it night in and night out? I don't know if they can score like this night in, night out against good opponents in the tournament. But the fact that they have the ability with the guards like this, Peyton, it tells me Houston's for real to win the title. Like, they're for real. Like, they only play 8 guys. It's the same 8 guys that they play. So the rotation, let me just say this. I'm stuttering my words right now. The rotations are set. They know the 8 guys are going to play. The bench depth's not necessarily there like other teams. Like we talk about, Auburn plays 11 guys. But that's not always a bad thing. And the fact that Houston can score the ball now, put it this way, in the tournament in a couple weeks, if Houston goes out of the tournament, it's going to be because a team like a Kentucky or an Alabama or Illinois has so much offensive firepower that they jump them early. Houston can't get shots to fall from Cryer and Roberts and Sheed and Sharp and all the company, and they're up 15, 17 points, and then Houston's kind of offense sputters out. That'd be the only way I think Houston goes out of this tournament. I think Houston, though, for real yesterday showed that they can actually win the whole damn thing. That's crazy, because I've been kind of not a doubter, but I've been very pessimistic based upon years prior. Yesterday, I think left without a shadow of a doubt that they can win this whole thing.
Yeah, I'm torn on this because one thing I agree with you. I think Houston can definitely win the title. I think Houston is going to get to the Sweet 16 just based off of their defense and their toughness. They'll get to the Sweet 16 just off of those 2 intangibles. Now, will they get to the Final Four, potentially win the national championship, or even farther than that? It's going to basically come down to the offense. Can they score the ball consistently? Because they don't play at a high tempo. They don't get many fast break points. They don't play in transition like teams like Kentucky and Alabama does and Kansas does and all these other teams does. They don't do that. They have their system, and it works for them, and it worked really well this year in the regular season and in Big 12 conference play. So they have that going out for them. But I think if a team hits 12 threes against them in the tournament, they are probably not winning this game. And here's why. Here is why. We've talked about it last year. We've talked about it multiple times. You brought up a great point last year when we talked about Arizona. What happens in these early rounds, second round, Sweet 16, even to an extent like the Elite Eight, or just any rounds in the tournament, when the 1 seed and it's a close game,
there you go.
The rims are tight. You're not hitting shots. Who has the more pressure on them to win?
That's right. It's the higher ranked seed. We've seen it with Purdue. We've seen it with Arizona last year, where the 1, 2, 3 seeds, if it is close inside that final 3 or 4 minutes, and there is even a sniff of an upset, that crowd is going to get behind the underdog. And
Absolutely.
Then all of a sudden the rims are tighter. And then you're playing a little tighter because, like, shit, we may lose, and you're not playing to win. You're playing not to lose, and you're beat more times than not playing that way. I'm with you. I think it's a great point. Let's move on, though. Let's go to the Big East, Peyton. One of the bigger games yesterday. It's unfortunate. Oso Ighodaro, Tyler Kolek did not play in this game. But that does not take away the fact that Creighton looked really good at home again. Baylor Shireman, 26 points, 16 rebounds. He hit 6 3-pointers yesterday. Ryan Kalkbrenner pitched in 19 points. Trey Alexander, 18. The big three of Creighton went off yesterday. Stephen Ashworth kind of came back down to earth a little bit. 4 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. And then they got 12 points from Francisco Farabello, hit 2 threes. This is Creighton. When they're big three, big four, if you throw Ashworth playing well, but when they're big three of Shireman, Kalkbrenner, and Alexander play well, they can beat anybody in the country. The problem is the NCAA tournament's not going to be played in Omaha. Like, it's not. They're a different team when they go on the road, like a lot of teams in the country are this year. But if the tournament was played in Omaha, Creighton would probably cut the nets down, to be completely honest. In back-to-back weeks, they've taken down Connecticut, they've taken down Marquette, both by double figures. Obviously, for those who come at us, Marquette not having Tyler Kolek and Oso Ighodaro was a massive loss. You can't deny it. This game may have been a little different if Kolek and Ighodaro would have played. But they didn't. Creighton handled business. Baylor Shireman, Peyton, 26 points, 16 rebounds. This is the kid that when he came in from South Dakota State that we all were like, oh, yeah, this kid could be phenomenal. These were the performances he was putting up then. He gave a big-time performance yesterday. Creighton got a big win. They're playing kind of like, take the St. John's loss last Sunday out of the equation. They're playing like a top 10 team in the country right now.
It's the first time in program history that Creighton has beat 2 AP top 5 teams in the country in the same season. So I just want to pull that stat out because that's actually a pretty good stat to mention. Creighton played great. I mean, Kalkbrenner did what he needed to do. He had 19 and 6, like you mentioned, played 38 minutes, 5 blocks. Baylor Shireman, like when he's on, it's so fun to watch him play because anytime you're watching a lefty who can stroke, it's always entertaining to watch. And when he's on, he's just on another level. Like some of those shots he was hitting, he was shooting them and then turning around because he knew he made them. When you're that good of a shooter, like as soon as the ball leaves your hands, you know it's good as soon as it's coming out of your hands. So he was on that type of performance, 26 and 16, 4 assists as well. We had 1 turnover, did not commit too many fouls. We had 1 foul, played as good as a game you can possibly get. And yeah, when Clayton's on and their starting 5 is playing well, they can definitely do some damage in March. And as far as Marquette goes, you mentioned that Ighodaro was out, Kolek was out. Cam Jones played great, 23 points in this one. Played every single minute of the game because he had to. 9 of 16 from the field, 3 of 8 from the 3-point line. Like he played as well as he can possibly could. At one point, this game was pretty damn close, and then Creighton at the last 4 started to stretch out the lead. I have no issues, obviously, with Marquette. I still think they can make a run as long as Ighodaro and Kolek can come back healthy. This team's so dangerous, and they've got the pieces to make a run to the Final Four.
The loss yesterday from Marquette, and then today's win just about an hour or so ago, Connecticut blew out Seton Hall, officially clinched Connecticut's first outright Big East championship. So I think it was 2006. Connecticut 16-2 in conference. They have clinched the Big East outright. They are the 1 seed in the Big East tournament starting in a week or so. Marquette is now 13-5 in conference. Creighton 13-6. Seton Hall 11-7. Villanova 10-8. And then you have a couple of teams sitting there at 9-9 in conference. So the 1 seed is set. Connecticut has won the Big East regular season crown, but it's kind of up in the air going into this final week of regular season between Marquette and Creighton, who ends up the 2 seed in the tournament, who ends up the 3, and then the rest of the spots, not named DePaul and Georgetown, are basically up for grabs as well. So congratulations, Connecticut, on your first outright Big East regular season title in almost 20 years. So any thoughts on that real quick before we move on?
This UConn team can win a national championship.
Oh, 100%.
They can win their 6th title. First team to go back to back since Florida did it in 06, 07. This team is legit. They've got the pieces. They know what they need to do. They know their roles. And I mean, this team is just really talented. They got everything you want in a team. They're tough. They're physical. They can play defense. They've got multiple guys who could score at all 3 levels. It's going to be tough to beat UConn in the tournament, but like I said a couple weeks ago, they are a team. They can definitely be upset. They can definitely be beat. You just got to have the right mentality and the right pieces to do so, and we'll see if it happens.
Shout out to Dan Siegel, by the way. I seen a tweet of his about an hour ago that said basically along the lines of, Connecticut's the only team in the country where I don't look at them and think that they could use X player on this team to make them even better, because everybody on their roster is pretty much a prototype of what Connecticut basketball needs. There's not too many guys really in the country that you would throw on that team right now and think, they would make them significantly better because Connecticut's that good. So great tweet. Peyton, let's move on. Let's go back to the Big 12. Kansas coming off the loss on Tuesday at home to BYU, which they just did. They had chances to put BYU away. They dropped it. BYU got hot late. They lose back-to-back yesterday. They go back on the road to Baylor. Baylor beats them 82-74. I know there's some interesting historical stats that you're probably going to throw out there in regards to Kansas, so I'll let you take this one away.
It's the first time since Kansas joined the Big 12 that we have lost 7 conference games in the Big 12. And there's another stat. I don't quite remember what it was. It's the first time in a long-ass time that we've had not won 3 straight conference games in a row.
Yeah, since like 1982 or 83, something like. It's basically been 40 years.
It's basically been 40 years since we haven't won 3 straight conference games in a row. To put it down, I go back to the Maui tournament after we lost to Marquette, and I posted on our Facebook group, like, this team has serious issues, and we need to get them figured out on our bench. And there's people, Dan Vest, a shout out to him, who was commenting on it, was like, dude, just relax, like, they're going to figure it out, like, their bench is going to come around. We're sitting March 3rd, and we still have the same problems as we did in early November. And it's not going to get fixed, I don't think. Like, not this late in the season. Nick Timberlake adds nothing to this team, nothing productive. He can't shoot. He can't defend. He doesn't really play hard. He doesn't give the effort. He can't rebound.
He had one rebound yesterday in 7 minutes. That was it.
He doesn't need to play. Just sit him. Like, I'd rather just play a walk-on at this point because he'd probably give more effort than Nick Timberlake has gave all season. Like, that's ridiculous. Jamali McDowell, even though he had some bright moments against Indiana and Assembly Hall, and he had the big free throws against Kentucky in the Champions Classic earlier in the season, like, he hasn't played up to his potential. Marco Jackson is a good defender, but offensively, even though he had a couple good stints later in this game to potentially give us a chance to come back and win this game. He offensively, he's just not it. Kansas is literally, and I mean this, I've said it the past couple of months now, Kansas is legitimately one guy away off the bench to potentially winning a national championship.
They're the opposite of what we just talked about Connecticut, where Connecticut doesn't need a player around the country. If you gave Kansas, now this is more of an extreme, you can go a lot of different ways, but if you gave Kansas Reed Shepherd, Kansas is a favorite for the national title. Would you agree with that?
Oh my God, yes. We win the Big 12 if we have Reed Sheppard on the team.
Or
Reed
Rob
Sheppard
Dillingham.
Or Dillingham. Whichever one of those two. If we have one of those guys off of our bench to be able to come out and just ball out like that and just provide us like great scoring. You know what's funny about this? Connecticut, and I forgot to tell this story a couple weeks ago. Connecticut was recruiting Nick Timberlake. It was a battle between both of our teams. We ended up getting him. Yeah. We ended up getting him. Us getting Nick Timberlake allowed UConn to go get Cam Spencer. Did you know that?
Yeah, no, I understand that. And maybe that's another one. If the roles are reversed, if Connecticut takes Timberlake and let's say Cam Spencer goes to Kansas. Now you're cooking, right? You're
cooking. But like we're one guy away. We just need somebody. And I think it has to be on Marco Jackson at this point. Somebody to come off the bench and get us like a 10 points. Just 10 points. You can get 10 points off of free throws. Like, you go attack the rim and get you to the line. Give us 10 points off of free throws for all I care. We just need someone to come out there and score in double digits to really take the pressure off Kev and Hunter Dickinson and KJ off of our starting five. Johnny Furphy, we haven't even really talked about this game, but Johnny Furphy didn't really play his best game in this one. Kevin McCullough was his first game back after missing 4 straight games. He played great. He had 20 points in this one, did what Kevin McCullough does best. Hunter Dickinson has 20 and 6. We had a chance to win this game like early in the second half when we were starting to make a run, and then Baylor started hitting some shots that they normally don't hit, which it is what it is. You know better than anybody. It happens. I can't really make excuses off that. Yeah. But Baylor, they're good. They have good guards. They played really well against Houston. Probably should have won that game.
Can I give you a concerning trend here lately?
Yeah.
Now I'm digging into the numbers. Like Dickinson's been phenomenal all year, right? He's been tremendous. And God forbid if he would have stayed at Michigan, if Michigan could have got Caleb Love cleared and they would got TJ Shannon allowed to transfer in. Dickinson never leaves Michigan. If you guys don't have Dickinson, the trouble you would have been in. But Dickinson's been great all year. But here's a concerning trend here lately I'm noticing. Yesterday, 20 points, 6 rebounds. Against BYU in the midweek, 17 points, 11 rebounds. Texas, 20 points, 7 rebounds. Oklahoma, 20 points, 16 rebounds. Great game. The loss to Texas Tech, 5 points, 7 rebounds. Baylor, 15 points, 7 rebounds. The point I'm getting at here is Dickinson's rebounding numbers have dropped pretty significantly compared to what they were at the beginning. You look at the Kentucky game, obviously Kentucky didn't have their bigs, but 27 points, 21 rebounds. Chaminade, 31 points, 11 rebounds. Connecticut, he had 15 points, 9 rebounds. Indiana, he had 17 points, 14 rebounds. Missouri, 13 points, 16 rebounds, and so on and so forth. In the last basically month, his rebounding numbers have dropped. You've got to have Dickinson going in and getting at least 10 rebounds a game. I'm sorry. And probably at least half of them offensive rebounds to give extra possessions. He's got to, I don't know what's going on, if like game planning or maybe he's getting a little fatigued, but Dickinson's rebounds numbers have got to go up. They have to. He can't have games where he has 20 points, 6 rebounds no more. That's got to be in the tournament, 20 points, 11 rebounds again.
I would excuse those rebounds if, yeah, I agree. He definitely needs to get double-digit rebounds. Like he needs to average about 12 rebounds per game.
He's your only true big.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, KJ, but you know what I'm saying? He's your only true out-and-out 5. He's got to get his nose in there and get more rebounds like he was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, but also if he wants to get more rebounds, like other teams have to start missing shots. Baylor shot 41% from 3. Like they're hitting majority of the 3-pointers, and so is other teams when they come and face us. BYU hit a lot of 3s against us. Like that's a stat like people need to pay
offensive rebounds though. Even offensive rebounds.
But but here's the thing, like I'm fine with him not getting rebounds if we're hitting shots as well.
If you're hitting shots, of course.
But we're not hitting shots and we're clanging them off the rim and they're long rebounds and allowing other teams to get in transition. Like that's something he can't. Like if he's down there in the paint and they have multiple guys surrounding them, like it's going to be hard for him to get the rebounds for that, especially if it's a long rebound because they're just going to get out in transition. Like we're like shooting it so long and so short, like clanking them off the rim that they'll end up long rebounds, and he has no chance of going getting the rebounds. He's not an Oscar Schubert that's going to get you 15 rebounds a night. Like just basically in his sleep. Like, he's not that type of player. Like, his job coming in is to score the basketball. He's done that well. Obviously, he needs to give more effort, trying to get more rebounds. But if it's something like if we're not just hitting shots, if we're just clanking them off the rim and the other team's making shots, it's going to be really difficult for him, especially if he's getting double teamed and they're really making an effort to keep him off the glass. It's going to be hard for him to do that.
Here's another couple things, because then we'll move on. Kansas. They rank 42nd in offense. 11th defense. Defense hasn't really been the problem. 42nd in offense. Look at their last couple scores. 74, 68. They did put up 86 on Texas. 67, 50, 64, 70, 78. I mean, they've scored 80 twice since January 30th. They've scored 90 once in Big 12 play. I'm sorry, twice. Once in Big 12 play. They've scored 90 once, and that was the win back on January 16th against Oklahoma State. The offense, I don't know. And again, I know the bench and stuff, 3-point shooting and all that, but it's crazy because Kansas under Bill Self runs such good offense year in and year out. They're normally a top 15, top 10 offense. And between Dickinson's got to get more rebounds, which I don't know, Peyton. I feel like the offense has got to start figuring out a way to get points on the board. And maybe that's DeJuan Harris shooting the ball more. I don't know what that is, but they're going to have to figure out a way to manufacture, because 42nd in offense. I mean, hell, you're 7th in the conference offense only.
Yeah.
Number 1 in effective field goal percentage, which means you're hitting basically anything inside the 3-point arc, you're making. You're shooting 50, right around 50, basically 54%. But 3-point percentage in conference play, you're shooting 31.4. That's damn near dead last in conference play only. So Kansas's offense got to figure out something heading into the NCAA tournament and the Big 12 tournaments. Big 12 conference race, it's still not done yet. Houston leads the conference at 13-3. Iowa State only a game back at 12-4. Baylor 10-6, and then you have 3 teams at 9-7, including BYU, Kansas, Texas Tech, which BYU and Texas Tech have both beat Kansas here in the last month. In the last couple weeks, actually, in the last 2 weeks, actually. So there's a legitimate chance, because Kansas still has the end of the year next Saturday playing Houston on the road. There's a chance Kansas could finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and play an early game in that Big 12 tournament and have a shitty road to try to win another Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. This is a crazy Kansas team, man. And I'll talk more about net comparisons here at the end of the show, but just I feel like everything comes down to your offense, your bench play and your offense.
Yeah.
If you're to make a run.
And the crazy thing is, like, we lead the country in assists. So it's not like we're not dropping, like, dimes and, like, getting people open and stuff like that. Like, we just need to make the majority of our shots. You know, Fofi, if he's not shooting, that's kind of the same problem we had last year. You know, Jalen Wilson, we had another shooter. Like, he really shined last year with his ability to shoot the ball from 3. Kev hit a couple threes. Warren obviously did with his deal, but Grady Dick was mainly our main shooter. And if he didn't have a good shooting night, we were really in trouble. And it's the same situation now. If Johnny Fofi's not having a good shooting night, if he's not shooting the ball well, then Kansas has a legitimate chance of potentially getting upset in the first round, because obviously we're 3 seed now. Unless the wheels completely fall off and we lose our next 2 games, we potentially can move down to a 4, but we're either going to be a 3 or a 4, and that's upset territory. Like, if a team hits shots and can defend us well, and like especially get Hunter Dickinson in foul trouble, like, we can go out in the first round, and that's something like I never expected coming into this year. Like, we were the preseason favorites to win the national title, and now we're sitting 9-7 in conference play, potentially with the 6th seed in the conference tournament and a potential chance of being the 4th seed in the NCAA tournament. That is ridiculous.
Crazy times, man. That's why hitting these scouting and make sure you have plenty of shooters is never a bad thing in today's college basketball. Kentucky learned the hard way the last couple of years. Cal went out and got all sorts of shooters, historically great offense. Defense struggled, but you need offense in today's college basketball. Let's rapid fire just a couple, because we've got to move on. Purdue beats Michigan State in a game. Michigan State jumped them early, but Purdue just rallies at home, especially wins 80-74. Why is that significant? Purdue at least clinched a share of their 26th Big Ten championship, and back-to-back for the first time in damn near 30 years. The Boilermakers are 15-3 in conference play now. Illinois second with 13-5. Northwestern 11-7. And then there's a tie between Wisconsin, Nebraska at 10-8, and Iowa's only a half game back in the loss column at 10-9. For the 4 double buys in the Big Ten tournament, which is massive as well. Peyton, Purdue doing what we all expected, gets their first back-to-back in basically 30 years, clinches at least a share. If they win in the midweek, they're going to win outright. 26 Big Ten regular season crown. Boilermakers are a machine.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, Zach Edey was a monster in this game. I mean, I think guards just play well. They can make a run, obviously, like we've talked about all season long. Like the difference between last year's team and this year's team was that guard players ramped up. They stepped up. Braden Swift's been playing good. Fletcher Loyer has been the difference maker, in my opinion. Like his ability to hit shots and really control the pace that they want to play at is very an integral part to their success this year. Purdue, 26 regular season title. It's crazy that they have that many, actually, to just really think about it. I mean, what can you say more than Purdue's just really fucking good?
Yeah. And then Florida, South Carolina opened the games up yesterday at noon yesterday, a simulcast on ESPN and the SEC network, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah, that was good.
South Carolina jumps them behind their patented toughness defense and all that. Florida rallies, gets a lead. But then South Carolina throws a zone at Florida. Florida act like they had never seen a zone in their life before. South Carolina walks away with another big win. Lamont Paris continues to do it down there in South Carolina. The Gamecocks win 82-76 over Florida. South Carolina is now 24-5 and 12-4 in conference play on the year, Peyton. Michi Johnson, another huge performance at 25 points. I mean, what can you say? South Carolina, Florida is another one of these teams. 15th offense, 87th defense. Add them to the list with the Kentucky, Alabama, and a lot of other teams like that. South Carolina is opposite. They've got an elite defense, and their offense is just good enough. 51st offensively, but they're so damn tough. They hit shots. They've got dudes who make shots late in the shot clock. They've got legitimate tough players on the inside. The development of Colin Murray Boyles as a legitimate 6'7", back to the basket, interior kind of go get him one, offensive rebound toughness. I pity, to use a phrase from Mr. T. I pity the fool who has to play South Carolina NCAA tournament, because the SEC's gotten used to it in a way by now, and they still have a hard time handling it. Imagine South Carolina is your 5 or 6 seed or whatever they're in it being, and you're some poor 12, 11, or whoever, and you have to see this team in the first or second game of your NCAA tournament run, and you're not used to the grind it out, toughness, slow it down affair South Carolina is going to bring to you. I think they could be a real problem for a lot of teams in the country.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I think if a team's not used to that certain style, I think then South Carolina can definitely make a run and definitely compete like really anyone in the country. They've played great. Lamont Paris has done a hell of a job with this team. Nobody expected them to do anything this year, and he came in and said, "Hold my beer and let's go." It's time to go, and they've played amazing. They're tied for second right now with Alabama for second in the conference. Yep. I mean, what a display. National Coach of the Year by far. And if anyone else says otherwise, then you are ridiculous. There's nobody deserves that award more than Lamont Paris. What he's done this year has been incredible.
Yeah, I would agree. Lamont Paris. Duke, Carolina, they all win. Duke beat the hell out of Virginia.
Virginia, do not let these fuckers in the tournament. Nobody wants to see this boring style, no offense. Grind it out. At least South Carolina, when they're grinding it out, at least they have the potential chance to go get you 70 plus. Virginia, I'm tired of seeing these 40-point games out of them. I like Tony Bennett. I think he's a hell of a coach, but my God, do not let these fuckers in the tournament.
They're the antithesis of Illinois, Kentucky, Alabama, Florida, all these incredible offenses we've just been raving about for the last hour. They're the opposite of that. They just can't score.
Dude,
they can't score.
4 of the last 5 games, they've scored 40 points.
That's crazy.
They haven't scored more than 50. Yeah, they haven't even cracked 50. They scored 47 against Wake, 41 against Virginia Tech, 44 against Carolina, scored 68 against Boston College, and then 48 against Duke. 4 games pretty much almost in a row that they have not cracked 50.
You know what would be the worst possible matchup if they do get in? Would be God. Virginia, South Carolina.
Yeah.
That would turn off the casuals we've talked about. Like that would not be fun.
Yeah. Do not put that game on CBS, TNT. Put that game on like Disney Plus or something.
Put it on Crime Network, because that's a crime to humanity to make anybody watch that. Virginia, South Carolina type game. Virginia can't score. That's a crime to the game of basketball, not be able to score like that. But let's move on, Peyton. We're heading into the final week of the regular season. We've got conference tournaments that's about to start this week, and we'll have this time next week, we will have official bids punch. We will be there live to cover one of them, which we will talk about. But final week of the regular season, let's start on Tuesday night. We have a pair of massive games on Tuesday night. Number 2, Purdue on the road at number 13, Illinois. A battle versus 1 versus 2. Purdue wins this game. They officially clinched the outright Big Ten title. If Illinois wins, they can at least still have a share of the Big Ten regular season crown. The Boilers in the first meeting against Illinois back on January 5th beat Illinois by 5 at home, 83-78, Peyton. Illinois, their offense, when TJ Shannon, Marcus Domask play the way they are, they've got the number 3 adjusted efficiency offense, according to KenPom, in the country. They've won 3 in a row since the loss to Penn State a week ago. This offense can get up and down, and look at the numbers they've been putting up. I mean, since February 13th, 97, 85, 89, 95, 105, and 91. They've got ballers in TJ Shannon and Marcus Domask. We know how Coleman Hawkins can be when he plays really good. At home, can they take down Purdue? Can they keep their hopes of at least a shared conference title alive, or does Purdue just wear them down like they do everybody else?
I think Illinois wins this game. I do. I think Illinois wins this game, being on the road. Purdue's going to have some struggles, like they've had pretty much all season long. They've done their best. They haven't lost a lot of road games, obviously. It's not what I'm saying, but they've struggled a little bit on the road. They struggled at the Kohl Center when they went at Wisconsin. They've struggled in other games as well. At Northwestern, obviously, they struggled. And Illinois, they've got multiple players that can go get you 15 plus. Terrence Jr. is going to be the most important piece on this team. Obviously, he's going to need to go out there and really have an efficient night, not just go out there and just score a lot of points, but he needs to be very efficient from the field, make majority of his shots. Coleman Hawkins needs to have his typical double-double type of game, not turning the ball over too much, staying out of foul trouble, and trying to play as good as defense he possibly can on Zach Edey. I think Illinois has the pieces to beat Purdue in this one. Purdue coming off of a game where they beat Michigan State, and they clinched at least a share of the regular season title. I think Illinois has more to prove and a little bit more to gain out of this than Purdue does coming into this one. Illinois is going to hold home court, and I think Illinois wins this game, and I think they score 85 plus to do it.
So I actually am in agreement with you, but here from a technical breakdown, here's what I want to see Illinois do. Push the pace. I mean, run off, make some misses like we see Kentucky and Alabama do. Make, miss, doesn't matter. Push the action. Make Zach Edey have to sprint the floor at all times. Speaking of Zach Edey, presumably Edey tries to match up with Coleman Hawkins, because if he goes any smaller than that, then I don't think it's a good matchup. Make Coleman Hawkins use ball screen after ball screen. Make them have to switch Zach Edey onto a guard, whether it be Terrence Shannon, Marcus Domask, whoever, and then go basically like an ISO. I want to see Illinois open the floor up, 5 out, nobody in the paint. Make Edey have to guard away from the rim. Make him where he has to stay away from the rim to not block shots. Go 5 out, keep the floor open, a lot of cutting through, don't stay in the lane. I want to see Marcus Domask get the right matchups. Illinois and Brad Underwood do a great job with Domask as a mid-post kind of guard, post up, back down, like old school in a way. Work switches. If Domask has Braden Smith or Fletcher Lawyer or one of these kind of quote-unquote weaker guards on him that can't match up to his physicality at 6'6", go to work on him in the post. Get them in foul trouble. Make them guard you in the block where they're not comfortable. That would be the only occasion where I say, okay, go to work in the painted area, kind of mid post, and just wear them out. See if you can get them in foul trouble, get them out of the game. Even Lance Jones, he's more physically tough than kind of Braden Smith or Fletcher Lure, let Domas go to work, and then TJ Shannon, get him to his left hand, isolate him on the side, and let him go to work. I think Illinois, to win this game, has to keep the floor spread, has to push the pace. They have to stay solid defensively. Don't overhelp on Edey so much in the paint because he's going to get his regardless, right? He's going to get his. Do not let Purdue's guards get going from the outside. Keep them in front of you. Keep it contested. And then Illinois is going to hit some shots themselves accordingly. But if they can do those couple things, I think Purdue can find themselves down 11, 12 points before they can even blink their eyes. I'm with you. I think Illinois is going to be fired up. It's senior night, their last home game of the year. I think they're ready for a big send-off. They know with the win, they have a chance to at least still get a share of the Big Ten title. I think they're going to put Purdue in a spot we haven't seen Purdue in a while in a high-tempo game, trying to keep pace, out of sorts. I think Illinois wins this game, 92-83. I think they can gap them there late, but they have to keep the floor space. Do not allow Zach Edey to get comfortable defensively and stay around the rim. That's the dumbest thing. Like when Indiana tried to post up Khalil Ware against Zach Edey, I thought that was just a death sentence waiting to happen. Keep the floor spread against Purdue. They'll have a much harder time trying to guard. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And I mentioned it. I don't know when I mentioned it. I think it was the Ohio State game, actually. They kind of laid the blueprint to how to guard Edey. Send double teams at him and send him in multiple different ways. Don't send the same double team twice. Keep him guessing. Keep him on his toes. Make him making mistakes. Make him turn the ball over, which he has done in the past. I think Illinois has a legitimate shot of holding home court and winning this game.
Let's move on. Also on Tuesday night, another big-time game in SEC, Peyton. You got the number one rated offense, according to Ken Pom, and adjusted efficiency, Alabama, on the road in Gainesville at Florida in a big-time conference tilt. Both these teams battling for conference position. We talked about that all-important double bye, so we don't have to play till Friday night. Alabama coming off this loss to Tennessee. They've lost 2 of their last 3 to Kentucky and Tennessee. This game is going to be like the Kentucky-Alabama game. All offense, optional defense. And I'm going to say the exact same thing I said for the Kentucky game. Whoever can get the most defensive kills and timely stops wins this game. And I think with Florida being at home, is this their senior night as well? Yes, this is their senior night. Walter Clayton's been all SEC kind of performer this year. He's been probably the best transfer in college basketball. Him and Cam Spencer, they might be 1 and 2. He's been tremendous. We know what Riley Kugel can do. They're a tremendous offensive rebounding team. I think Florida can get enough stops. Let's say they get 2 defensive kills and then somewhere like a stretch of 3, 4, 5 minutes where they make Alabama go scoreless from the field. That's enough to win the game. It'll rely on their ability to crash the offensive glass, but I think Florida gets just enough stops to hold Alabama. High-scoring affair. Florida wins on senior night and really jumbles this SEC title or the SEC standings up. I got Florida winning another high-scoring one. I think they win 91-86.
I don't know which way it's supposed to go because I'm not a Gator fan, but I think Florida homes home court. Like, I agree. Everything you said. No, the offense is just both of those guys, both of those teams are going to want to score at a high extent. Florida actually wants to play some defense, unlike Alabama, so I think that's going to be a deciding factor in this one. Walton Clayton is junior. Like, when the game's close, I feel like this dude just makes big-time plays at the right time, and I think he's going to be a difference maker. I agree. I think Florida, defending the home court, they want that double bye so badly because it's very, very important. It's very, very important. I think Florida wins this game. I do think it's a high-scoring one, but I think it's a high-scoring one for Florida. I think Florida wins this game 90-78. I think they win this pretty comfortably. I think they get a double-digit lead in the second half. I think it's close in the first half, but the second half, I think Florida goes on a run, gets enough stops, strings enough stops together, and then after that, Alabama's not going to want to play any defense. And not to say they're going to give up because they're never going to do that.
Not with that offense,
yeah. I think they're going to lose their momentum and lose their confidence, and Florida's just going to hold home court.
Well, Kentucky laid the blueprint, right? You just need enough stops, and if you've got a high-powered offense like Florida has as well, then that's all that really needs. And I trust Florida, especially with the offensive glass. I think that's so important in this game. The way Florida can throw bodies and get second, third, fourth opportunities off of misses, Alabama doesn't do that nearly as well, and I think that could be a huge difference as well. The offensive glass and Florida having the ability to get a few extra stops, that offense will carry them, especially at home on senior night, I guess. And I think I'm with you. I think Florida wins this one as well. Let's go to Wednesday, where a couple more big-time matchups. You got number 4 Tennessee on the road at number 18 South Carolina. Peyton, South Carolina beat Tennessee in Knoxville back on Tuesday, January 30th, 63-59. A game Dalton Knecht had 31 points, but the rest of the Vols struggled. I expect Tennessee to be pissed off. They've won 6 in a row against pretty good competition in that stretch. They've won 6 in a row. I expect Knecht to have another big game. I don't think that South Carolina is going to surprise them this time with the way they slowed the tempo down, the physicality. Even though it's going to be in South Carolina, I think Tennessee is going to look for revenge. They're going to look for blood, and they're going to try to impose their will on South Carolina's physicality. I think Tennessee wins this one. I think Carolina keeps it close, but I think Tennessee wins the game 74-70. But I don't think Tennessee's going to – I think they're going to remember that loss back on January 30th and be extremely pissed off. I would not be surprised if Knecht doesn't go for 35 again on Wednesday night.
Man, last time I did this, I ended up being incorrect on this. I really want to pick South Carolina to win this game, but I think that point you just made is going to be the most important part of this game. The fact that Tennessee lost this first matchup in the home building, they're going to want to make a point out of this. They're going to want to make a statement out of this, and they're going to be pissed off. They're going to be ready to go from the get-go. I think Tennessee jumps them early, gets out to like a 10-5 lead, 10-4 lead, and I think Tennessee just holds it the rest of the game. Tennessee wins this one. I don't think they're going to necessarily blow them out, but I do think they dominate for 40 minutes, and Tennessee wins this game by like 8 points. Tennessee wins.
Yeah, I think they're going to be pissed off from that loss, and knowing they have a chance to clinch the outright title in the SEC, I think that you're going to see a really good version of Tennessee. South Carolina is going to fight now. Lamont Harris, if we've known anything this year, his teams aren't going back down. And I think that first 4 or 5 minute segment, if South Carolina can get up like 12-ish, 10, 12, and then can really start to shrink the game, maybe Tennessee gets tight again. But I think the start of that game is going to determine a lot for the rest of the 40 minutes of that one. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think Tennessee wins as well. And then the last one I want to talk about, number 3 UConn on the road at number 5 Marquette on Wednesday night. Just a week ago or whatever, 2 weeks ago, UConn beat the living dog shit out of Marquette up there in Storrs, Connecticut. We've talked about it earlier. Connecticut's already clinched outright title. But I think they want to continue to show that you're not going to mess with them in the NCAA tournament. They're going to go into this game looking for blood. It's going to be really interesting if Tyler Kolek plays. If he does not play, Connecticut's going to dog walk them again. I mean, they are going to dog walk them. If he plays, might be a little different story. Peyton, I want to hear your thoughts on this first.
If Tyler Kolek is on the floor and he plays, I think Marquette wins this game in a very, very close battle. I think, like Tennessee, they're going to look for something to prove. They're going to want to hold their home court after that ass whooping in UConn about a couple of weeks ago. They're going to remember that game, and they're going to be wanting to defend their home court. And Shaka Smart's going to get these boys ready to play. I'm sure that's going to be bulletin board material for them. They're going to remember that, and they're going to come out and play. But if Tyler Kolek's not on the floor, it's going to be a little bit like it was 2 weeks ago. I think if Kolek's not on the floor, I think UConn dominates and they win this game by double digits, and they might even win by 20 plus like they did last time. But if Kolek plays, it's going to be intriguing. It's going to be like a game time decision for me, like whether I think Connecticut wins this game or they lose this one. Like if Kolek plays, I think Marquette wins this game close. If he doesn't play, I think it's going to get ugly.
No offense, but I don't even think it matters if Kolek and Oso Ighodaro plays. How do you bet against Connecticut right now? And I mean that seriously. I know Creighton last week beat the hell out of them, but I think that was more the outlier than it was the rule. How do you bet against Connecticut? Like, I don't think there's much that Marquette, if Kolek and everybody plays, Kolek and Ighodaro play, yes, at their best, at their peak offense, they can cut them to death. They can hit threes. They can do all the fun stuff that Marquette loves to do. But you still got to guard Connecticut. And Connecticut, they just suffocate you with physicality. Their guards really blow up dribble handoffs. They blow up screens. And then offensively, if you play them to stop the interior of Donovan Clingan, well, then they've got guards that can beat you. If you try to shut the guards down, then Clingan will go to work. They're such a complete team. I'm going Connecticut regardless who plays for Marquette. They go on the road and get a win. And I think Ken Palm's about right, about 76-74, but I'm going Connecticut to win this game. Just how the hell do you pick against them? It don't make sense to me. I don't understand it. I'm going Connecticut. They're such a machine. I mean, they're such a machine. Peyton, we got some conference tournaments beginning this week. Some start and will end the following week. Some play actually this week. Like we mentioned, they'll have bids punch. Let's look at some of these real quick. Let's start with the one we will be at Saturday for the championship action. We go down to the Ohio Valley Conference Tournament. Peyton, when you look at the bracket, tell me what you see, kind of predictions who we will see on Saturday night in that conference championship race.
Well, the 1 seed goes to Little Rock. They've had a great season this year. They're 20-11. They're coming off of a 9-game winning streak. They've won the last 9 games. They've played really, really well. They've got multiple players. KK Robinson's definitely their best player, their best scorer. He's going to go out there and he's going to do what he needs to do for them to win. I do think they get to the conference tournament final. Now, who will they face is a little bit difficult for me, because I think I would like to see them and Morehead State play in the final. Morehead State's the 3 seed coming into the season. I had Morehead State winning the conference. I think they've got the pieces to be able to make a run in the conference tournament. I think it's going to come down to that. Obviously, them and UT Martin is going to play in the semifinal for the right to play Little Rock in the final. And it's going to be difficult because whoever wins that UT Martin Morehead State game in the semifinal, I think they go on and I think they beat Little Rock in the final. That's
I think
my perspective on it.
If you remember last year, the top seeds didn't make it to the final game. No. Last year we had Southeastern Missouri State and we had Tennessee Tech.
Yeah.
Neither one was the top 1 or 2 seeds. So this tournament has a lot of unpredictability to it. And you talk about the top 3 seeds, they all finished with the same record, 14-4 in conference play. Little Rock obviously won the tiebreakers and was able to get the 1 seed. I'm looking at this bracket here that you just went over. Morehead State, unfortunately, getting a 3 instead of getting a 2 has to play the extra game on Thursday. We talk about this all the time, how important getting that extra day's rest is. Playing the fewest amount of games to win a conference championship is so vital. I look at Morehead State. Let's look right here. 23-8 overall, 14-4 conference. They've won their last 3. But they did lose back on February 15th and 17th. They lost to Little Rock and they lost to UT Martin. And then they took a really bad loss to Southern Indiana. But they've also beaten Tennessee Martin. And they only played Little Rock once, it looks like.
Yeah.
They only played Little Rock once.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think from the 3 seed spot, Morehead State beats the winner of either SIU Edwardsville, Eastern Illinois on Thursday. They get the rubber match against UT Martin. They beat UT Martin. And then I think Little Rock, Peyton, I mean, that's a good team. Yeah. You talked about they've won 9 in a row. They're 20-11 overall. But you know what? I'm with you. I'm going who was that? Oh, I'm going Little Rock as the 1 seed playing 3 seed Morehead State on Saturday night when we're there to cover that live. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'll say Morehead State wins, but I think we get Little Rock Morehead State on Saturday night. Bid on the line. Us, the ECB folks, will be there to cover it live. I'm excited conference tournaments are back, though. Like, I'm so excited, bro.
100%, man.
I'm so excited. Couple of the other conference tournaments that begin this week at least, and some of them even end. The Big South begins this week. When you look at the Big South, Peyton, what do you see?
I see High Point winning this. I think High Point being the 1 seed, I think they go on and face UNC Asheville in the final. I think it's a good game, but I think High Point, with their ability to score, I think High Point wins the conference tournament. And I don't know if it's going to be close because High Point is just that good of a team. They have that good of a season. I think they've got the pieces, and I think High Point comfortably wins the Big South tournament and punches their bid to March.
You know what? I don't think I can go against you on this one, to be completely honest. High Point has been phenomenal all year. What a job, too, that oh, shoot, what's their head coach's name? He just escaped me here.
Alan Muss.
Yes, Alan Huss has done 24-7, Peyton. They've got a good win. Well, sort of good. I guess Iona's struggled this year, but you know what I'm saying? Illinois State's been up and down in the Missouri Valley, but, you know, I'm with you. They did lose their final regular season game last night to Longwood. They lost by 2. They played a close game against Winthrop. I think that High Point wins, but I would be very much on the lookout for Winthrop. I know they've got a 4 seed in this conference tournament, and they've really struggled. But March brings out crazy stuff, man. They're the number 1 team as far as free throw attempts to field goal attempts. They get to the foul line. They don't necessarily shoot the greatest percentage, or 69%, but something's telling me that we're going to get a High Point and Winthrop semifinal, and I wouldn't be surprised if Winthrop knocks them off. Then that would set up a Winthrop and probably UNC Asheville. But I think obviously the best game on next Sunday for the winner of the Big South Championship would be 1 seed High Point and 2 seed UNC Asheville. That's where I'm going with, and I'm with you. I think High Point ends up getting the auto bid from the Big South. Peyton, the Missouri Valley. Go ahead real quick.
With the one thing, if that is the matchup to just keep in mind, High Point in the season, they swept UNC Asheville 2-0. It is very difficult to beat a team 3 times in a row, so I just want to keep that in mind. I do think, even though I said it's not going to be close, it would not completely shock me if UNC Asheville goes into the conference tournament final and beats High Point, because it's really difficult to beat a team 3 times in a row. But I do think High Point wins, though. Just keep that in mind. Go ahead and move on.
No, I'm completely with you. It is hard to beat a team 3 times across the course of the year. Peyton, the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament starts this week. This time next Sunday, we will actually probably be watching it, or at the end of that game right there, to see who wins the Missouri Valley and gets the auto bid. What a fun conference this has been all year long, Peyton, with the likes of Indiana State and Bradley and Drake and so many of these quality teams. At one point, we thought maybe the Missouri Valley might be able to get the auto bid and maybe an at-large bid, but Indiana State, Drake both kind of screwed that up. Indiana State's the 1 seed in this, Drake's the 2, Bradley's the 3. To me, those are the 3 favorites, but you can't sleep on a team like Southern Illinois. Northern Iowa played, if you remember back earlier in the year in the battle for Atlantis, they played North Carolina really good. So they have the talent. Belmont's always the sleeper in these tournaments. Same with Murray State. When you look at the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, Peyton, what do you see? Because I think this one could get really wild.
I'm trying to pull up the bracket. I just can't.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the official bracket too. And it's I don't think it's official yet, because I think Bradley and Drake, they play each other today at 3:30. They're playing right now. So
either way,
but it's set though. It's set though because Drake's 2 games up on Bradley, so it's not going to matter. Like those are the 1, 2, and 3 seeds, so it's not going to matter.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would. Who I hope wins is Indiana State. I hope they win.
I do too.
If they don't win this tournament, then they're not making the NCAA tournament.
They're not getting the auto bid.
There's no chance in hell. There's no chance in hell to get the at-large bid. So I am heavily rooting for Indiana State to win this tournament. I don't think they're going to do it, though. I think Drake wins this 2 years in a row. I think they win it. Tucker DeVries is the best player, or one of the best players in this conference. I think he does what he did last year and goes off of a string of games where he's just getting 20-plus every single game. I think Drake's the team to beat. I think they're going to hold their spot. They do play Bradley in the first game, or they played Bradley today, excuse me. I think they beat Bradley today, and I think they go on with some momentum, and I think they punch their ticket too much like they did last year and win the Missouri Valley Conference Championship.
So I've got the seed list pulled up, but because games are being played right now, like Southern Illinois and Northern Iowa, they're both tied. The winner obviously gets the either the 4 or 5. Belmont's playing Evansville, so there's still some shaking up to be done. But if you look at the bracket here, it's going to be 8, 9 playing each other, which would be at this point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Illinois State and Missouri State. Illinois State with a win and a Murray State loss against Indiana State today could move up. So it could be all shaken out. We don't have the official bracket, but I'm with you. I think Indiana State's been the best team all year in this conference. I think that we should get an Indiana State Drake matchup. Bradley could obviously throw a monkey wrench in there, or some of these teams we've talked about. But I think for the best matchup, we go chalk. We get Indiana State Drake next Sunday. Winner goes to the NCAA tournament in St. Louis for Arch Madness. What an incredible game that will be. And the storylines you talked about, Drake made it last year. Tucker DeVries, electric junior. But Indiana State as a team has one of the most fun offenses in college basketball. I'm with you. I'll fully say I'm going Homer here. I'm going to Indiana State to win the MVC and get back in the NCAA tournament.
I'm going to keep my eye, especially on this conference tournament, because I want to do like I did last year, where because I actually got to set in for the conference tournament final for the press conference. I actually get to set in there, and I asked a couple questions after Drake ended up winning the title last year. So I'm going to try to do that again and see if I can do the same thing and maybe set up for an interview for before we get into the selection Sunday. So keep your eye on that. I'm gonna try my best to see if I can get into that press conference again like I did last year.
That'll be really cool. Payne, we got to start rapid firing these. The ASUN tournament starts this week as well. You look at the bracket right here. They are set on Monday. Actually, tomorrow, tournament games start in the first round. You got Jacksonville versus Kennesaw State, Queens versus Florida Gulf Coast, and different matchups here. On Tuesday, you have Eastern Kentucky is the 1 seed. They are waiting to see who they play between, I assume, Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State, or Jacksonville and Kennesaw State. Stetson was the 2 seed. They're waiting to play the winner of Queens and Florida Gulf Coast. Our friends down there, Lipscomb, they played North Alabama. Lipscomb ended up finishing Lipscomb was the 2 seed. They play North Alabama in the tournament, Peyton. When you look at this tournament, obviously it starts this week. I don't think it ends till next Monday. First round games you have in Richmond, Kentucky, and then the very next day, like I said, they'll be there to play Eastern Kentucky, who won this conference regular season. When you look at the tournament here in the ASUN, I think there's a couple teams to look for. Eastern Kentucky was the favorite in the magazine we predicted. Yep. They end up winning the regular season. Our friends over at Lipscomb, we've seen them. They have a crazy offense. They're ranked 76, which when by low major standards, that's a pretty good offense. Stetson. I think of all the terms we've talked about, this might be the most wide open and subject to a crazy, like if North Alabama gets hot, they could win this conference tournament and win the AQ. But when you look at it, I think we might be headed towards an Eastern Kentucky Lipscomb showdown. What do you think?
I think I was about to mention the same thing. I covered this conference in our magazine. I had Eastern Kentucky winning. I had Stetson finishing second. Actually, I'm going to go back and watch. I think I might have predicted the top 3 as correct as I did in the magazine. I'm about to go back and look at who I had predicted. I know I had Eastern Kentucky finish first. I know I had Stetson finishing second. So we'll go back and see. But I think those are your 3 teams. I think Eastern Kentucky, Stetson, and Lipscomb can all win this conference. I think this tournament is wide open. I could see a team like Florida Gulf Coast winning a couple games in a row and really making this conference tournament even more intriguing and interesting to watch. I think the final is going to be Eastern Kentucky and Stetson. And I think Stetson wins this tournament final. I think their ability to score and hit shots, they shoot over 35% from 3. Their defense isn't as good as Eastern Kentucky's is, but I think their bench is a little bit better, a little more deeper than Eastern Kentucky. And they've got guys like Stephen Swinson who can go out there and get you buckets. They got Jalen Blackman who can go out there and do the exact same thing. I think Stetson wins this conference tournament. I think they punch their ticket. I think they beat Eastern Kentucky. They've played this game, I think, once this season, and Eastern Kentucky end up losing to Stetson. So keep that in mind. I think Stetson wins the tournament.
So you want a sleeper in this conference tournament. They've won 7 of their last 8. They've got the 4 seed in this conference tournament. They've won 7 of their last 8. in the regular season. The only loss being to our friends down there, Coach Lenny Acuff and Lipscomb. They lost by 5 points. They've played. Now, they didn't beat some of these teams, but in the regular season, they played George Mason, good George Mason team. They played Tarleton State, good Tarleton State team. They've played App State. They've played Morehead State. They beat Murray State. They beat Southern Illinois. They played Western Kentucky. They beat Ohio. They played Memphis to an 11-point game, Peyton, and they've won 7 of their last 8, including beating Eastern Kentucky, North Alabama, Queens, North Florida. That's Austin Peay. They don't turn the ball over. They're 13th in the country in turnover percentage on the offensive end. They're 5th in steal percentage. They shoot 36.6% from 3. Isaac Haney shoots 38% himself from 3. They're the 4 seed. You talking about a team that's 17-14 that could really sneak up and win this and get the AQ. I'm looking at Austin Peay to potentially be a bid stealer here and shake up the ASUN tournament. By the way, imagine Lipscomb wins and gets the automatic qualifier and makes the NCAA tournament, and we get Coach Lenny Acuff back on the show. Imagine how fun that show will be with the excitement. Like, he'll be pumped, I could imagine. Bro,
100%.
And then the other one real quick, the Sun Belt tournament is set. It starts this week. I think it also ends next week. Peyton, real quick, when you look at the Sun Belt tournament, what do you see? Because I think there's something pretty clear in here, but I'm curious on your thoughts.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up just real quickly. That is not the Sun Belt. That's the West Coast. What the hell are you doing for the 6A? What the hell? That shit just popped up.
Okay.
I found it. Okay. Appalachian State's the 1 seed. James Madison's the 2 seed. Southern Miss is the 6 seed. I'd still say watch out for Southern Miss. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
They're road to hoe, though. They're going to play the winner of the 11-14 between Texas State and Old Dominion. They'll play on March 7th, which will be on Wednesday or Thursday.
Thursday.
Then they would have to play Troy and then probably James Madison and then App State. I mean, that's a road to hoe right there if they're to come out of that from the 6th seed.
But I think if they can get to the semifinal, if they play James Madison, who they've already beat this year, I think they can potentially steal a bid and win this conference. They've got good guards. I think James Madison wins this, though. I think
State swept them.
Yeah, I know. But again, it's hard to be a team 3 times in a row.
I've said
that earlier, and they got the pieces. They started the year off really hot. They could score. I think they're going to go into the conference tournament final, and I think they beat Appalachian State. I think they beat them in a close one. And this is also might be a game to like you'll see a buzzer beater for the bid in the conference tournament. So I think James Madison wins this one.
Yeah, I think this is the one where I'm going with App State. And that doesn't mean that they can't be beat. And I know it's chalk, but they're 24-5, man, and they just roll teams. I mean, I'm 26-5 actually. And yeah, I'm going App State. I'm going with the 1 seed. I think James Madison's more likely to get picked off by either Georgia State, Marshall, or somewhere in that semifinal, whether it be Southern Miss or Troy or whoever. I think we're more likely to see App State in the final next Monday on March 11th than we are James Madison playing App State in the final. I'm going App State, and you know what? I'll say Southern Miss. I think they get on a hot streak. I'll say we get App State, Southern Miss, and then App State rolls Southern Miss to get the AQ. But tournament conference. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
I was going to say conference tournaments are here. We got bid weeks punch. Peyton, just real quick, because we have went really long today, which is fine. It's March. We normally go longer. But bracketology, real quick, shout-outs. Let's get the hell out of here. We talked about it a little bit. The 1 seeds, according to our friend over at Jonathan Warner at MakingMadness.com, Purdue, Houston, UConn, Arizona, they stayed the same from last week. Alabama, Illinois, Auburn, San Diego State's 4 lines. Kansas, Duke, Baylor, Creighton 3, and Kentucky a 5. The reason I bring this up, I pulled the net ratings up. I said earlier I wanted to bring something up. Kentucky's 20th in net. These teams ahead of them, San Diego State 19th, Kansas 18th, Illinois 15th, Duke 9th. You compare resumes though. Duke 5-3 in quad 1s, 5-3 in quad 2, unbeaten in Q3, Q4. Kansas though, this is the one I wanted to bring up. They are 20-8 overall. Kentucky's 21-8 in overall. On the road, Kansas 3-6, Kentucky 6-3. Neutral, Kansas 3-1, Kentucky 2-1. Home, Kansas much better, 14-1, Kentucky 13-4. Quad 1, Kansas 7-7, Kentucky 5-5. Quad 2, this is the difference where I think Kansas has Kentucky, obviously. Kansas 5-2 in quad 2, Kentucky 2-2. And then they both have a quad 3 loss, and they're both undefeated in quad 4. Alabama, 20-9 overall, 5-4 on the road, 2-3 in neutral, 13-2 at home. They're 3-8 in quad 1, 8-1 in quad 2. They have a loss like Kentucky and Kansas. The reason I bring this up, Kansas listed as a 3 seed, Alabama 4, Kentucky a 5. Other than the quad 2 between Kansas, Kentucky, and the fact Kansas beat them head to head, why the hell, and I want to ask Jonathan this, maybe we can get him on Thursday. Why is Kentucky a 5 seed, but Kansas is a 3, Alabama's a 4? If you look at the metrics in that terms, there's not a lot of difference. Shouldn't they all be on the same line? That's what I'm curious about. What say you?
I think when the metrics are that close, I think you have to go at like head to head. Like if these two teams played each other, who did beat who? Kansas beat Kentucky early in the season, therefore I think Kansas should be ahead of Kentucky. Now I'm not a bracketologist.
Kentucky beat Alabama.
That's hold on. I was about to mention that. I'm not a bracketologist or anything like that. I don't do anything bracket stuff besides fill out my brackets and hope and pray I do well. That's the only thing I do. So I don't know about seedings and all that. So I think Kansas should be ahead of Kentucky. I think that point with the metrics being that close. But if we're going off that, and the metrics are that close, you go head to head, Kentucky beat the living shit out of Alabama. How is Kentucky not ahead of Alabama?
Right.
That part kind of causes concerns to me. And I think if we go, I'm going to have to pull up Alabama.
Let's look at San State too. They're one spot ahead in the net of Kentucky, 20-7. So they're one fewer loss, but one less win. They're 5-7 on the road, 3-0 in neutral, 12-0 at home. Great. But they're 3-7 in Q1 in a much weaker conference than SEC is, even though the Mountain West we've raved about and we love, and they're a good conference. Kentucky's 5-5. It's got to be because that the loss to LSU and the loss to UNC Wilmington. But I got news for you. UNC Wilmington may make the tournament. So why is San Diego State a whole ass seed line ahead of Kentucky? It makes no sense to me.
So I pulled up Alabama's schedule. They lost to Ohio State on a neutral floor. They lost to Clemson. Those are the first 2 losses of the season. And Clemson has basically almost played themselves completely out of the tournament.
Although they're a 6 seed here.
Yeah, Ohio State is out of the tournament. Those are 2 potentially non-tournament teams that they lost to. Now, if you look at Alabama's schedule and who they've beat, their best win all season, they've had some good wins against, like, they beat Morehead State, or Morehead State's a tournament team. They're pretty talented. Indiana State, potentially a tournament team. They beat Eastern Kentucky. If they win the conference, that's a tournament team. They've beat good opponents. Their best win all season long was probably South Carolina when they beat the shit out of them, 74-47 at home in Alabama. Compare that win to Kentucky beating North Carolina.
Who is
in a neutral site. In a neutral site, by the way. Wasn't that Rupp Arena? They beat them in a neutral site. And they did it in good fashion. They played amazing in that one. That win against North Carolina is better than anything Alabama has done all season long.
I agree.
The metrics are close, and Kentucky beat Alabama. I do want to get him on the podcast, at least tweet out of him or DM him on Twitter or something to get his thought process on that, because I'm very intrigued in that myself.
And I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. And because that sets up, if this was the bracket, Illinois, Kentucky would play in the second round. That'd be the first of 90 wins. That would be insane. But then his last 4 in, you have Ole Miss, New Mexico, Providence, Wake Forest in the battle of the 11 seed games there. Clemson in at 6.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. They're struggling. North Carolina, Marquette, Tennessee, and Iowa State are the 2 seeds. I think there's a lot of shakeup. His last 4 out is St. John's, Utah, Iowa, and Virginia. I think of the 4, if one of them were to get in, I see Iowa getting hot down the stretch here.
They're starting to play well.
I see them, if they could beat Illinois at the last game of the regular season next Saturday, I think that puts them in the tournament and knocks like Ole Miss or whoever, Wake Forest out, because Wake Forest is struggling now. And then the next 5 after that, Pittsburgh, who's getting a little better, Cincinnati, Memphis, Texas A&M, and Syracuse. So obviously an ever-changing thing day by day as we get into some of these conference tournaments. Some of these teams start getting knocked off, like Eastern Kentucky's and a 16th play in against Grambling right now. They get beat. Obviously, they're not making the tournament, so somebody else from the OVC slide, or not OVC, from the A-Sun slides in. A lot of interchangeable parts, a lot of stuff to keep up. This is the time. I said for 3 months, bracketology doesn't really matter. It matters
now.
It matters now.
It's showtime.
It matters now that the calendar's flipped to March. So we'll keep up with that. Jonathan Warner of MakingMadness.com does an incredible job, as well as our friend Dan Boston. A lot of these bracketologists do. Go watch them and listen to them as opposed to somebody on CBS and some other places. But Peyton, we've been here really long today. Let's hit shout outs, get the hell out of here.
My shout out goes to Creighton Clark. I mean, the best women's basketball player I've ever seen, period. Can't wait to watch her at the Indiana Fever next year. Me and my dad's already talked about when we were watch her play a couple of times, watch her in person, just see how great of a player she is actually in person compared to the TV screen. Shout out to her for just breaking the all-time NCAA Division I scoring record. That's a record that nobody thought was going to get broken. What a player. That's all I can say is what a player. Shout out to all the bids that's going to be punched this week. We mentioned all the conference tournaments. The one tournament we didn't mention that doesn't really matter because for one, the format is dog shit. And for two, I think I know who the winner's going to be. WCC. I mean, Gonzaga's the 2 seed, same as the 1 seed. I think Gonzaga wins that one pretty comfortably. So shout out to everybody who's going to punch their bids this year or this week. Can't wait to go to the OVC tournament next week. Watch that tournament, the tournament final in person. Had a blast last year. And just shout out to everybody who watches and helps supports this podcast. Our bracket challenge will be starting here very, very soon. Make sure you get into that.
Combining it. Yeah, go ahead and announce that.
We'll combine it. We'll get out to the details here probably this week. We'll see. Yeah. Should be very intriguing to watch. I can't wait for conference tournaments to actually ramp up and start, man. It's March, baby. Let's fucking go.
Hell yeah. And combined shout out, obviously, Creighton Clark from both of us. I mean, tremendous. Don't listen to the people who complain about the women's game and all that. Incredible. Like, she's such a baller. Peyton, a couple other shout outs. Aaron Bradshaw. There's been games here in the last couple of weeks where he's literally only played a minute, kept his head about him, mature, said he's always cheering on his teammates. It's his fault, the reason he doesn't play. He stepped up yesterday when Kentucky needed him most 15 points. I love the attitude of this team, these young guys. Shout out Aaron Bradshaw. Shout out Josh Hubbard of Mississippi State. They lost twice this week. The heartbreaker earlier in the week to Kentucky where Reed Shepherd hits a buzzer beater. He goes for 34. They get beat by 15 by Auburn yesterday. He follows up at 23. He shouts out Reed Shepherd on Twitter the night after, or the day after getting upset, or not upset, but beat on a buzzer beater. You love to see that stuff, and he is a baller. He's one of those guys, you don't want to say it out loud, but theoretically, if he wanted to transfer from Mississippi State, some of these higher end programs, after seeing this dude score like he does, he would get picked up pretty fast. Josh Hubbard's a baller. So shout out for an incredible week, even though the 2 losses. Shout out Kyle Filipowski, recovering magically from his horrific injury from the court storm we spent 30 minutes last week talking about. He dropped, 21-7, 2-1 block, or 1 block and 3 steals on a bad Virginia team yesterday. So congratulations on the miraculous comeback. First it was the ankle, then it was the knee, and now he's windmill dunking. I mean, modern medicine, am I right? And shout out Notre Dame and Micah Shrewsbury. They have won 5 of their last 6. They're only lost in that time period on the road against Syracuse, where they got beat by 3 in a game where they damn near came all the way back. They are 12-7. They are 7-11 in conference play in a total rebuild. If you don't think then the next 2 or 3 years that Micah Shrewsbury won't have Notre Dame a top contender in the ACC again, you're out of your damn mind. They are 25th in defense and adjusted defense. Shout out Notre Dame and Micah Shrewsbury. He's getting the Fighting Irish head in the right direction, and I think you will not want to play the Fighting Irish led by Micah Shrewsbury in the next couple of years because they're going to be a problem. But wrapping up, we appreciate Brandon Ramsey from Kentucky Sports Radio joining us at the top of the show, talking about some Kentucky basketball. We went long. It is March. Shows will start getting a little longer. We got a lot to talk about, special conference tournaments. Thank you for sticking with us. For those who watch us live when we drop it on the YouTube later or across social medias, thank you to the House, our network, House Enterprise and House College Hoops. Now the fact that we have all migrated to the same kind of network using StreamYard, upgraded a lot of stuff. Video quality will start getting better. It's HD now, full HD, so you can see all of our beautiful faces now in high definition. The bracket challenge is on its way. We'll announce more on that. It will be house branded, sponsored, led by the ECB crew again, as we have for the last 6 years. So a lot of fun stuff, but most importantly, Peyton, we're in the month of March. Let the madness begin. Thank you guys for watching and listening to episode 179. Drop the follow, drop the likes, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Get our voices out there. We know we're being heard. We get comments weekly. Thank you to everybody who leaves us some love and appreciates the analysis we give you. But for Peyton, for myself, for everybody here at ECB, everybody at the House Enterprise and House College Hoops Network, we appreciate you. And next week when we come to you on this Sunday episode edition, we will have some bids punch. We'll talk about Experience OVC tournament and much more. We will see you guys on the midweek show on Thursday. Until then, enjoy your college hoops. It's March, baby. Let the madness begin. We'll see you down the road.